What's up, people? It's another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best new metal podcast from two dudes who are really there. On behalf of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Ministry Jr. Tim, how goes it?
Great. Looking forward to this one.
So am I. So am I. I was actually responding to a commenter today on YouTube who was talking about our 1997 episode, and he said, I've been waiting a year for this episode. I'm glad you guys finally did it. And I replied and said, hey, well, you know what? Tonight we are recording 1998. So we're going to loosely title this one, folks, The Strategic Reconfiguration of Heavy Metal, a comprehensive analysis of the 1998 musical ecosystem. What does that mean? What this means is 98 was a wild year. That's it. That's an episode. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week. So 98 was a profound year for a lot of metal in a lot of different reasons. At this point, new metal goes away from being the subgenre that's bubbling below the surface, the thing that some people are listening to, some people aren't, and it blows up entirely into the mainstream. We're going to talk about the album a little bit more in detail, but I think the catalyst for this, and arguably, Tim, you let me know if you agree, the tipping point for this, the thing that sets all this off, is in August of 1998, Korn's Follow the Leader, their third full length, is released, and it debuts at the number one on the Billboard 200.
Damn.
It eventually sells over 5 million copies in the United States alone. Granted, this album was seen as a departure, and some of the fans were on the fence for it because it went away from the really raw Ross Robinson produced way of Korn sounding to something more polished. Even with one could argue that there's a bit of a hip hop sound to how this album comes across audio wise. And I mean, they collab with Fred Durst, they collab with Ice Cube on the album. They also did some different things. They included a lot more bass drops, right? So Got the Life is the first song that was, I think, released as a single. I just remember seeing that video first. And there was a lot of 808s in there. They did a lot of rhythmic syncopation. It's kind of cool. That's what they were known for up to that point with the drop tune 7-string guitars. And they create the mold with this album that then influences the next 5 years, I would argue, Tim. All the way through 2003, you have every band trying to go back and find the magic that was Korn's Follow the Leader, their own flavor of it. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is, one would love to say that this was an isolated breaking out. The fans just took it and went nuts with an incident. But the truth of the matter is, this was a managed, quote unquote, gold rush. This was managed. You had labels like Interscope, labels like Roadrunner, labels like Elementary, which is a imprint. They were aggressively trying to find these bands that had the way I saw it described was groove-oriented riffs and angst-ridden lyrics. So at this point, if you're looking for that band to fill that template, to fill that niche, that hole, you're going to end up with almost an oversaturation of the quote-unquote next big thing, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, is kind of what happened. And we're going to get into it. There were a lot of bands that put out significant debut albums this year. Off the top of my head, System of a Down, Spineshank, Godsmack. By the way, Tim, you know what I learned? I learned where the term butt rock comes from. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
The term butt rock was derived as a slight on bands whose popularity comes from radio stations that played, ready for it, nothing but rock.
Mm.
So that's where it came from. So when you hear butt rock and people say Disturbed, Chevelle, Three Doors Down, Breaking Benjamin, Godsmack, that's butt rock because they come from that KY whatever it is. What was the one out in California, the Weenie Roast, whatever the station was. All those stations that played YSP, all those in Philly, all those stations that played nothing but rock. That's where their popularity came from.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
There we go, everybody. Remind that it's not as offensive as you think it is. It's from stations that played nothing but rock. If you thought it was something else, get your mind out of the goddamn gutter. All right. Now we're going to dig in. We're going to let's start with ground zero for this whole movement. This is Bakersfield. At this point in 98, nu metal had left the Bakersfield blueprint, and moved into a global phenomenon. And August 18th, 1998, Korn puts out Follow the Leader, produced by Toby Wright and Steve Thompson. It automatically sounds beefier and more direct. There was this massive guitar tone on this album. And anybody that doesn't is struggling with understanding that, go back and listen to Life is Peachy. Get 3 songs in, close your eyes, and then put the first 3 songs in from Follow the Leader. It is a noticeable step change.
Oh yeah, it's like night and fucking day.
Yeah, and to the band's credit, uh, it's hard when you leave a producer behind, right? Deftones used Terry Date for ages, and people used Ross Robinson for ages, and sometimes you're taking it on a wing and a prayer to go out and try something a little bit different with a brand new producer. But it worked for them, and truth be told, they had a significant budget from Epic slash Immortal. Immortal slash Epic, I guess they were signed to Immortal, which was a sub label of Epic. They leaned into that and they spent it, and good for them. Good for them because it obviously worked out. Again, you debut at Billboard 2000, Billboard 200. You debuted at number one, sold 268,000 copies in the first week.
Damn.
That is that's fucking banana. But we also need, Tim, at some point, we're going to do the importance of MTV and the rise of nu metal.
I was literally just going to say this. Yep.
Follow the Leader was the first video to be retired from MTV's TRL, Total Request Live. Those of you that are too young to know what TRL was, or too old, we've got some of those fans. TRL was on in your after school hours on MTV with Carson Daly, where it was shows that were just request driven, and the videos that got the most requests throughout the day, they were the ones that showed up on this show. So this was truly audience driven. And Freak on the Leash and I think Got the Life were inevitably or eventually retired from TRL because they couldn't, nothing else could displace it. Those were the things. And this is kind of a nice indicator of what's going on with the youth culture in America. The fact that metal, yeah, it's new metal. It's not, our parents' metal. The fact that metal was resonating with the younger culture, and it kind of, I mean, you think about the Gen Xers, right? Because we're both Gen Xers. You think about the angst of our generation, what we went through, all that sort of stuff. Us latchkey kids drinking out of the hose, blah, blah, all those sort of stereotypes you can find on Twitter. It was true. It was true. And nu metal found a way to grab that raw emotion and throw some hip hop sounds behind it.
Am I a Gen Xer?
What year were you born?
83.
No. Well, you're basically on the cusp. You're technically a millennial, but I give anybody born up to 85 a mulligan. You're close enough to the Gen Xers that you're one of us. You're not one of those other less exciting millennials.
Pussy boys. Complainers.
I have to be careful of what I say, but I've got some feelings. Let's just put it that way. A couple more of these beers and they'll be coming out. Anyway, Korn truly creates the sound that defines this era. With Follow the Leader, they create the sound that defines this era. And the funny thing is yes, it's a big album, it's a huge album. Not one of the biggest landmark albums to come out that year, but it wasn't even a debut. There was a shit ton of albums that came out that year that were debuts. So Tim, I'm going to go talk through a couple, right?
Before you get into that, have you ever heard people say that Follow the Leader is like Korn's actual first album because it was like the first album that got them into the mainstream? You ever hear people say that?
No, and I would punch them in the face if I did.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. Like, oh, no, I mean, like, yeah, I know they have the records before, but like this is like their first record. I'm like, how? What are you talking about?
What?
Like,
what?
Well, it's the first album that, had mainstream success. Not really. What are you talking about?
Excuse me. That's like saying, Korn, not Korn, Slipknot. Everything before Volume 3, the subliminal verses doesn't count.
Yeah, like, huh?
Or System of a Down. If it's not hypnotized, mesmerized, it's basically a demo. What?
Yeah, this is like a Kirk comment, bro.
Just idiots. So we have Korn with Follow the Leader. Peaks at number one. defines that it sets the tone for the genre, right? And this is 5 times platinum, #1 Billboard debut. Smaller, lesser known band that ends up blowing up hugely, peaks at 124 on the Billboard Hot 200. This is System of a Down on Def Jam America / Columbia. Uh, this album goes on to go platinum. Rick Rubin produced this off a demo tape. I'm very on the fence with Rick Rubin, Tim. I'm not sure about you. I read good things. I read bad things. I read he was there. I read he was distant. I really want to read his book to see if he's onto something. It kind of just sounds like he's just there hanging out, man. And he kind of just keeps ending up in the right room at the right time to get the right accolades.
I've heard mixed reviews of him also. The podcast he did with Rogan was okay. I mean,
Yeah, he's just kind of an odd dude. Next, Korn's System of a Down. Who else but Max Cavalera with his post-Sepultura debut, Soulfly, the self-titled on Roadrunner. This peaks at number 79. This is where nu metal starts to get really weird. He's got world music in here. We got some tribal percussion. You have guest spots by Fred Durst, Burton Bell, Burton C. Bell, Chino Moreno, Benji Webb from Skindred, and oh my God, it's just everybody's on this thing. Everybody is on this thing. This
I
album goes
actually think it's
gold.
a great record.
The first one it's a little all over the place, but it stands up better than the later catalog.
Oh my God, yeah.
I've got that Soulfly military hat around here somewhere. You can put that one on. This album goes gold. Goes gold. Good for Max post Sepultura. Next we have Godsmack. This is the definition of butt rock, peaks at 22. This is their debut albums. This is a traditional metal riffs, and it's got a big like wall of sound to it. This is mainstream and radio friendly.
Butt rock.
Yes, anything but rock. Next, we have from Elementary / Reprise. This is Orgy with Candy Ass. So they peak at number 32. This is where nu metal's again, where experimentation is the coin of the realm, and we're letting bands are doing all sorts of different things. This is the most successful debut for Elementary Records. Obviously, you can only have one debut, but here it is. This actually goes platinum.
Holy shit.
Think about that. That
I
album
did
went
not
platinum.
know that. I did not know
Yeah,
that
it's
went
it's
platinum.
it's totally insane. Next, we have not nu metal, but nu metal adjacent. Rob Zombie puts out Hellbilly Deluxe from Geffen. This peaks at number 53. This is seen as a return to form, even though he was terrible on this tour. There, I said it. I'm not apologizing. Sorry, John Wren. This album goes multi-platinum. This is your typical Rob Zombie horror metal. We also have Pitch Shifter with www.pitchshifter.com on Geffen. It doesn't chart in the US. But this is a band, again, they were a very, very heavy industrial sound. If you go back and listen to Desensitized, go back and listen to Infotainment, they replaced the industrial of Godflesh with breakbeats, drum and bass. And they end up with a really wild, unique sound, microwaved. What you see is what you get. Virus. They showed what's possible when you really get outside of your comfort zone and incorporate some different things. Those of you that are big fans of this album, like myself, don't worry. We have a deep dive on this album coming soon.
Yeah, man.
Next, Tim, we have an album that from Roadrunner climbed all the way up to number 77 on the Billboard Hot 200, eventually certified gold. This is Fear Factory and Obsolete. This was an album that I could actually put on with my girlfriend in the car, and she actually enjoyed it.
Which is crazy.
Well, Burton can sing, and
Yeah,
there's some moments where he really sings on this album. Did we deep dive this? I think we did.
If we haven't, we're idiots.
I think we did. All right, we got to go look that up. Jamie, pull that up. And last but not least, not explicitly nu metal adjacent. He toured with nu metal bands. He played nu metal shows, and he guessed him. So let me tell you, I'll give you some hints. This album topped out at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 200. This eventually went diamond. Any idea? I'll give you a hint. He played Woodstock. I'll give you a hint. Fur coat.
Oh, Kid Rock.
There you go. Kid Rock, Devil Without a Cause. I would argue this proves that being adjacent to nu metal, at that point, nu metal was a giant gravity well, pulling everything with it. He was just adjacent enough. Kid Rock showed up on all those Ozzfest sampler CDs that they would give out at the end of every show, where you send the postcard in, and like 3 months later you get a double CD set. I actually sold mine back, which is a shame. They're worth like, I think you get a decent amount of money for them now. He showed up on those comps, and
That
everyone's
went
like, "Who is this? Who is this dude?"
that went diamond.
Diamond,
God damn, how
14
many?
times platinum.
Holy shit.
That is insane.
That explains why he has his whole house is gold.
Yeah, I mean, Bob to Bob, man.
Oh
Bob to
God,
Bob.
that record's
It's
trash.
and something else to think about is at this time there was also the conversation that rock is dead. Rock is dead. Nobody wants to listen to rock. Rolling Stone. All right, but is that magazine still around? If it's not, it should be dead. It's terrible. Village Voice. I love the Village Voice. Used to read it when I lived up at home, up in North Jersey. It was fantastic. They would argue that that rock lost its creative vitality. It was saying hip hop is a thing. Hip hop is a thing. Uh, but then you look at the actual zeitgeist and what's actually selling and what's moving. That, and we're going to talk about this thing next. The Family Values Tour in 1998 grossed over $6.5 million. Grossed.
The whole tour?
Yes. Not net, Tim. Gross. So that's profit
Oh.
after
Oh.
expenses. Oh, no, wait. No, I have that backwards. Every accountant who's listening to this just yelled at me. Gross is the total, net is profit. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of
So
money.
they netted 6 million.
No, they netted less than that. They grossed 6.5 million. I don't know what they netted. It depends how much money they were paying Ice Cube. All
Yeah,
right, so
right.
let's talk about that. 98 Family Values Tour. This is Korn saying, hey, we're going to combine a bunch of different stuff on the same bill. We're going to see how it works. They came up with their idea with their managers. The rough idea they framed out was the idea of a fan conference. Like bring all the fans together, do meet and greets and signatures and all that, but then play a show. The first year in 1998, the lineup is Korn, Limp Bizkit, Ice Cube, Orgy, Rammstein. You also had different openers. I think Incubus played a show or two. A couple other bands played a couple of shows. I think Stained maybe played a show or two. This was very, very diverse, and it challenged what we knew at the time of the Ozzfest or the Warp Tours, which was viewed as kind of different. I didn't go to this, Tim, because at that point, I don't know about you. Did you ever go to this? I had seen all those bands. I was like, I don't need to see them again.
I did not go. No. I've never seen Corn live.
Really?
Never.
They're man, they put on a good show. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm
They put on
very
a great
sad I'd
show.
never seen them live in their heyday, but what are you gonna do?
Well, there's always the inevitable reunion. The
Yeah.
the 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 interesting take though is at the time they threw Ice Cube on this stage, right? So they have a hip hop guy with a very, very masculine, aggressive music type, and you have Ice Cube coming in. Uh, wild, and sets a different tone and a different expectation. Rammstein was a huge draw. They they had pyrotechnics. They got arrested after their show in Worcester for indecent exposure. We've all seen the videos that's on the Family Values Tour VHS/DVD. Them showing up on Family Values helped send Sucht. I think I said that right. No Deutsche Hörte. That album went platinum in the United States, which proved that not only is there an avenue for new metal, there's an avenue for new metal. It's not even spoken in English.
I think I have a DVD of Rammstein.
Rammstein. They're one of those
It's like
bands that is visually just nuts.
it's like this black cover. It's like an
Probably.
insert one. It's like you have to like open it. I'll have to pull it out and send a picture to you. I think it's a
Uh,
live show, actually.
do you remember, Tim, who Rammstein replaced on the bill?
No.
Rob Zombie.
Oh, really?
Yep. Apparently he was dropped because the production costs were over 125 grand per show. And they were
God
like, yeah,
damn.
no.
For what?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. In 98, Family Values was the thing to go to. along with Ozzfest. We have done a deep dive on Ozzfest 98, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. We know that by far is it's my favorite lineup. Tim and I have talked about this. You have the Family Values Tour with Korn as the primary headliner, Limp Bizkit, Ice Cube, Rammstein, Orgy. Great. This is hip hop and metal being blended together. Ozzfest 98 is the classic heavy metal with your newer wave bands. This is Ozzy, Tool, Megadeth, Motorhead, Snot, Ultraspank, System of a Down, right? So you're balancing both sides. Monster Voodoo Machine, Kilgore. Here's some names you probably haven't heard in a while. And at the same time, a guy who was new metal adjacent, not new metal, but I believe I think he's damn close to it in that Venn diagram. Marilyn Manson launches the Rock is Dead tour,
Oh
which
yeah.
started with Hole, and then I think they kicked Hole off, and it was Monster Magnet. But
Ugh.
this is Marilyn Manson doing his glam pivot into Mechanical Animals, his David Bowie worship phase before he goes into Hollywood.
Which I think was one of his best eras, honestly.
I we're gonna get heat in the comments, but that's fine. I actually really like Manson's work. I think the last album or two are probably some of the better things he's done in recent memory. He is a really weird artist.
Yeah.
He is a really weird artist, and he does really weird things. And he's obviously controversial for the sake of being controversial. He's provocative for the sake of being provocative. Uh, I don't know. I think Antichrist Superstar is a great album.
Yeah,
Shoot me.
Mechanical Animals is a amazing record too. I don't care what anyone says.
Mhm.
Weird cover, weird dude at that time, but I think
Yeah.
it was great. I could listen to that record any day. I love it.
Agreed. Agreed. One last thing to think about with Ozzfest. You have your legacy acts. This is Ozzy Osbourne. This is Motorhead. Megadeth. I forgot I saw Megadeth play Ozzfest 98. Uh, they were bringing the old heads into the room. However, the bands that were really blowing up is your System of a Downs, your Incubuses, your Snots. Tool was on this lineup, right? So Tool has a very dedicated fan base. They brought some weirdness to it. Maynard was in back stomping grapes. It created a lot of buzz around some of these younger bands to launch themselves into their career. I don't think Incubus has the career that they have and that don't play Ozfest 98.
No, probably not.
No, they'll eventually pivot to their non-new metal AOR butt rock type stuff, but they needed that fungus among us science push. Tim, we're gonna come away from new metal for a little bit in 1998. We're gonna talk about industrial music and what the hell is going on as it starts mutating. So the first example is Fear Factory, which I don't think was too far off. Obsolete was not too far off from Demanufacture. They got a little bit more melodic. They got a little bit more, I would say, radio friendly, but not even radio friendly. They're friendly for WSOU. They're friendly for YSP late at night or K Rock, not necessarily radio friendly for daytime drive stuff,
No, no, you're not hearing Edge Crusher at 1 p.m.
which would be, paging Jayway from Bayway. He would come on right now. We say that three Edge Crusher 3 times. He shows up and starts talking about all the key changes. It was, I mean, that staccato drumming that Raymond has and very mechanical sounding. And I think the big thing that pushed us over the edge, pushes it to gold, is the cover of Cars, which was, I think, not on the original release, if I remember correctly. They released the album, they released the single, then they went back and re-released the album with Cars on it. If I'm not, Jamie, pull that up. I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you remember?
they put out a disc of it and had like 5 extra songs on it. Um, which were some of them were really good. I forget the names of them. Where Evil Dwells,
Yes.
right?
Yep,
Cars,
they covered Cars, they covered Where Evil Dwells, and then they had some early stuff from Concrete.
yeah. I think there was like 5 tracks after. I just forget what it was called.
It was the Digipack. There was
Digipack. There you go.
the Cars, Where Evil Dwells, which is Wise Blood. There was a version of something from Concrete. There was something from the Messiah soundtrack, and then there was another song that was released as the B-side to the Dog Day Sunrise single. But yeah, they released this album and then they went back and re-released it um, with Cars on it. Because if I remember correctly, Shock and Descent were the first two singles. They released a chart. They managed to chart, but didn't really hang around and have some lasting popularity. They released then Cars, which was exclusive to the limited edition Digipack. That was what push them over. That and the music video.
I actually
That
think that's a
is
great cover.
yes, yes. Uh, Gary Newman's a weird dude. He's a weird dude. Anyway, so we've got Gary Newman's Cars, which propels Fear Factory into the stratosphere. By the way, everybody, we are going to talk about the importance of cover songs and how they help launch new metal bands. That episode's coming soon. We got to go back to my buddy here who's out of breath the last time I saw him in concert, Rob Zombie with Hellbilly Deluxe. Apparently, I forgot, this is his solo debut. This is not a White Zombie release. This was him. And this was, he moves away from that groove metal that White Zombie played. They toured with Pantera in the early days, makes total sense. To think, there was a show that I had tickets to and I ended up bailing. White Zombie, Pantera, Deftones
Damn.
at the East Rutherford. It's the Brendan Byrne Arena, the Meadowlands, the indoor part. Wild, man, wild times there.
Was that a tour?
Yes, it was an actual tour.
Damn.
And that's a big room. I mean, it's not as big as Madison Square Garden, but it's just that
What
big
year was that?
that
Wait,
was
you said
97.
Pantera, White Zombie,
Pantera, White
Deftones?
Zombie with Deftones opening.
Wow.
I want to say that was 97. It had to be 97. It's wild times. This was heavily influenced by the horror stuff that Rob Zombie loves. A little bit of an industrial rock sound. And speaking of Marilyn Manson, when you think about how theatrical his Hellbilly Deluxe like visuals were, now we have to talk about Mechanical Animals, which was him Manson jettisoning that dark industrial stuff and moving to some more glam David Bowie Diamond Dogs era aesthetic, which is I actually think really cool. I think it was really cool. It was really different at the time. People loved it or hated it. It was very divisive, but is what it is.
I think that record is still the same. Still the same to this day. People either love it or they hate it.
And it debuted at number 1, but fans either love the radio friendly sound and the sexless human alien that's on the cover, or they hated it. Another band to
Why
think
does he
about
have
with
tits?
and 6 fingers. Another band that had a little bit of an industrial influence, which we actually talked about this album before. We probably should just deep dive it as a standalone. Slayer's Diabolus of Musica releases in June 98. This
Love
is
it.
easily their most controversial album. They drop tune to C standard. There's a lot of chugging, new metal worship. The fans hated it, but at that point, thrash was not cool. So they had to do something different. And we do got to go back and deep dive on it because it really is a fascinating album to go through. Very fascinating representation of the time.
They sold out, bro.
Bro, what the fuck, bro? Ooh. And
They
who did they take? Who did they take on tour as the opener? Kilgore.
Fucking probably cut their hair. So else.
By the way, after this episode, I got to remind you if you've seen this thing that I sent. Oh, just say one word, just say Metallica. Anyway, we're going to talk about death metal now, Tim. So in death metal, this is sadly the swan song of Chuck Schuldiner from Death. This is the Sound of Perseverance. It comes out in September. This is the apex of death metal, moving into what we now consider progressive metal. Very high pitched vocals, really, really complex time signatures, and classical guitar.
Great
And
record.
yeah, it really is. Chuck Schuldiner, man, what a talent that guy has. He went from the gore based stuff in the 80s, right? And he moved it to he himself shifted that needle into something where, hey, there's some technical virtuosos here. Like we're not just like apes banging on open chords. Like we really know how to play our instruments. And this was a very philosophical, almost intellectualized approach to death metal that Chuck used. And the funny thing is, with this album, he used an all-star lineup. He recruited all these technical guys that were session musicians to push the boundaries of what is acceptable for the performance. And you have, I mean, let's grab a random song, right? Voice of the Soul. That's an acoustic piece, which shows a lot of One would argue maybe even emotional vulnerability that you don't normally see in technical death metal. They cover Painkiller by Judas Priest, which is kind of nuts in and of itself. And this helps them to bridge the technical aspect of death metal where they're taking death metal with its historical roots. It's kind of cool. Sadly, Chuck died shortly after this came out. I think he had brain cancer. And the impact, the long running impact of this album is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. There are so many artists that go back that when you say, who was the first band you heard where you heard the guitar and you're like, yeah, I want to play like that. A lot of bands, it's death.
Did you watch the Vice thing yet?
I haven't watched that series yet. I'm waiting for the wife to go away so I can do them all at once because it's not something that she'd be down with. By the way, I did see Primate this weekend, and after the opening scene, I just giggled.
Yeah.
I just giggled. Note to those of you watching, listening at home, don't get a chimpanzee as a pet. It's just a terrible idea all the way around. Anyway, at the same time that Death is releasing The Sound of Perseverance, one of my least favorite bands, Gorguts, release Obscura, which is now it's thought of as this landmark avant-garde technical death metal release. Uh, dual guitars that were attacking at the same time, unconventional song structures, very dissonant album. There really wasn't melody, it was really just arrangement. It's more like nerds nerding out with their instruments.
Yeah, not the biggest fan.
I truth be told, I went to Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, and when Gorguts played, I slept in my seat. And Dan was so mad because he's sitting there and I was asleep. And then after they were done, he nudged me and I woke up. It might have something to do with the high test beers I was also drinking, but I am not a Gorguts is up there with Incantation for me, where it's like, great.
Cool. I
Wake me
seen one
up.
song.
Yeah, I've now seen the entire set. I'm gonna go sit in the bathroom.
Sit in the bathroom.
What else comes out, Tim? Technical metal, extreme metal in '98. We don't have slam yet or all that sort of stuff. Aside from Death and Gorguts, Morbid Angel puts out Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, which is the introduction to the quote unquote Steve Tucker era of Morbid Angel.
Didn't Morbid
We
Angel, aren't there all the records like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A? Like, didn't they do that?
I think I think not not ABCDEF, but we have the debut album that establishes Viking metal, Amon
Oh,
Amarth, one sent from the Golden Hall. Cool. That is metal that is cool for people who don't like metal.
yeah,
Because they
I'm
show
not
up
a
and there's this
fan.
giant stage show. It's, oh, it's Vikings, this giant ship, and Thor, and yeah, lightning. It's like how Ghost is Scooby Doo metal, and it's not meant for us purists. Enjoy Amon Amarth, right? Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Shit up your own ass metal.
Next, we have actually a band that I absolutely love, and I saw them touring off this Nile with Amongst the Catacombs of the Nephrim Ka. This is technical death metal at its finest, pulling in the Egyptian history, Egyptology. Uh, they were kind of doing the thing at the time, and they kind of revived it. And again, it was Dillinger, Coalesce, Nile, Unsane, Neurosis. And this is Adam Dahl era Dillinger.
This is a tour?
This was the Relapse Contamination Festival at the TLA.
Oh, Contaminate. Oh, yeah, yeah,
How, but
yeah.
think about that lineup:
That is
Coalesce,
sick.
Dillinger, Unsane, Nile, Neurosis. Neurosis with the full-on 9 members. Pete Inc. doing the visuals. Wild times.
What Coalesce record was that off of?
Uh,
Oh, what is that called?
it is. Wait a minute. I can actually tell you. If you give me 1 second, I will pull it up. It was
If it's what I'm
Functioning on
thinking.
Impatience.
Yep, that's a great record.
Yep. Yeah, it was I got to see a lot of good tours back in those days. I was glad that I have friends who had a car. And last but not least, our boys at Cannibal Corpse, they released Gallery of Suicide. This proves that death metal could still evolve. They are still touring, still putting out great shit. Scourge of Iron is their best song. Frantic Disembowelment and Scourge of Iron are the 2 best songs, and I refuse to take any conversation in that matter.
I absolutely love live cannibalism for simply one reason. When he announces the song titles at the beginning, I fucking love that shit.
Yeah,
Like right
he
before the song, he's like, he
this
just
song is called "I Call Blood." You're
yeah,
like,
I
what?
love that shit. You ever
Yeah,
see the video
it's
where he says that and the dude in the front, the security guard's like, what the fuck?
yeah, and he turns and looks at him. Yeah, it's
It's
biggest neck in all hardcore.
it's funny as hell because it's some black dude who has no clue what the music is, and he's just like,
Can you imagine like
doing
some of those
security.
poor security guys that work these shows are like, who is this? Who
he's
is
just,
this band? Like Rumstein?
we
What?
gotta
Okay.
we gotta find the video of the dude when he says it, and he just looks. He's like, what? That shit is
Starts-
great.
yeah, it's good times. Or the videos where the security guards get into it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
really know what they're doing, but they're like, it's
Dude,
awesome. Like that's
dude went
awesome.
home at the end of the night and told all of his buddies, like, yeah, you fucking believe this shit? This dude's talking about common blood. Oh fuck.
Yo, doubt. Pull it up on Spotify. All right. So now, Tim, we're going to talk about the evolution of black metal, specifically European black metal. What's going on in Europe at the time? Their aesthetics. 98 is this is you're watching black metal drift from that whole basement boombox recording to more symphony, more theater, bigger emphasis on presentation. The two bands that I think are the biggest names of the genre at this in this time in history that everybody
Let me take a
recognizes.
guess. Can I take a guess here?
Yep.
So 98 ish. I'm gonna take a guess. And I'm not looking at these notes. And you said power metal?
No, this is black metal moving from the recorded in a bathroom in a basement to big theatrical symphony.
Oh, see, when you said the symphony thing, I thought you were talking about like some power metal stuff. All right, go ahead. My bad.
Uh, Cradle of Filth
The Mew.
and Emu Burger. Yep.
Yep, I figured. Well, I could have named them too, yeah. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they were the easy ones. But these are these two bands become the faces of what we consider as mainstream black metal.
Absolutely.
And Cruelty and the Beast was Cradle Fit's album in '98. It's all about Elizabeth Countess Elizabeth Bathory, which is really kind of dark and really really cool if you think about it. I mean, you want to talk about a genre that fits and a subject that fits. I love when, as an aside, I love when these black metal bands find a particular niche and they go at it. There's that one band that just does World War One themed black metal, which is awesome. There's Departure Chandelier, which does a lot of French Revolution type stuff, which I love. I mean, go
What's
on.
the other band? Not is it 1914 you're talking about?
It might be, or yes, it might be.
It's like
There's a
super sick black metal, but it's all about like the
yes,
world. Yeah.
there's another band that was all like World War One tank metal. What was the name of this shit? Jamie, pull it up. Let me look now. Now you got me looking because I saved it and I was like, yo, this shit is wild.
I think it's the drummer, the old drummer of Dark Funeral played on that.
I would have to sit here and look back through a lot of this. I don't tip. You know who would remember if I pinged Cleary right now and asked him what's that World War One tank metal band, black metal band, he would know immediately. But yeah, I like when those bands pick up certain thing and they're like, "Yo, this is what we're doing. This is our jam. This is what we're gonna go into." So really cool that they pick Countess Elizabeth Bathory. This album is big for them. Uh, it says there was a complaint around the snare drum. And the quote I saw was it said it was trampissing. Does that sound right, Tim?
I don't know.
Hold on. Trampissing snare, cradle of Phil.
On principle,
I don't know what they're talking about. Um, it's on the album Cruelty and the Beast.
oh, cruelty.
Cruelty and the Beast snare sound. Uh, Devastating drum attack. Yeah, I don't understand where that came from.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Cruelty has like Beneath the Howling Stars and Once Upon Atrocity, stuff like that's on that record. I don't
You know
remember.
what? I can find it though. Let's keep vamping here. Keep vamping while I find it.
I don't remember. So they're saying the snare was terrible on that record?
Yes.
Huh?
I'm looking for it right now. Hold on.
I'm gonna find it on my phone and put it on. Hold on. The snare sounds fine.
I am looking for it now.
Yeah, this is a great record.
Yeah, I don't know. This will take me forever to find it. I have so many references listed. All right, so we're gonna move it along. Anyway, while we're talking about European black metal, aside from Cradle of Filth, very melodic, very sensible. It made the band more accessible to a wider audience than the bands that the people who just don't want to hear straight up Norwegian black metal. And it spawned again. This is another album that spawns all these copycat bands, second and third waves. In '98, you also have the Finnish band Nightwish releases Oceanborn, which is considered a big cornerstone album in the symphonic black metal genre. And it's got some, the operatic vocals of the singer Tarja Turunen with keyboard with power metal chords. It has this massive sound, and it sells over 68,000 copies in Finland. It proves that there's a demand for that high concept metal. You fan, Tim? Nightwish?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about this one? Blind Guardian.
That was going to be the band I was going to say earlier if you're talking power metal stuff.
So they release Nightfall and Middle Earth, which is based upon the hardest book that Tolkien ever read, the Silmarillion, which I
I'm
always
not familiar with any of that stuff.
it's the book that comes before.
Is
And
Tolkien the dude who did the
Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's the Lord of the Rings guy. And it is very, very cinematic. Again, we're really in that vein. Nightfall is one of the greatest power metal albums ever produced. It balances that thrash and that metal sound with this giant storytelling. Just really, really cool.
That record's actually pretty cool.
Ooh, what else do we have that year? So we have Blind Guardian with Nightmare in Middle Earth. We have Nightwish with Oceanborn. Hammerfall puts out Legacy of Kings, which is
Another
reviving that 80s metal, speed power metal stuff. You also have Stratovarius
oh
with
yeah.
really high pitched vocals and that neoclassic, the cat shit that you love, cat shit. With the album Destiny, and then the band Rhapsody puts out Symphony of Enchanted Lands, this is how Hollywood metal it was built. I saw some critics say that this is pushing power metal into that symphonic territory.
So far, great year for metal.
So far. Now we're going to talk about the other side of the coin here, Tim. We're going to talk about the record labels at the time, and there were some mergers going on, and how things actually became commoditized. So in '98, Seagram's pays $10.6 billion to acquire Polygram, and then it mergers Polygram with Universal Pictures, creating the Universal Music Group. So who's impacted? Interscope, Geffen, A&M. Now they're all under the same umbrella. So this is where bad shit happens, right? Because metal is one of the first genres to go. They start dropping all these veterans, and they really want to focus on the high margin radio friendly stuff. And at that point, it just happened to be new metal, so it made sense that they capitalized on some of that. And also in '98, Interscope, which is under Jimmy Iovine, which, by the way, the documentary with him and Dr. Dre, where he says "fuck sneakers, let's make speakers," is a great documentary. Jimmy Iovine does something a little bit different. He signs joint venture deals with smaller records like Flip, which did Limp Bizkit and Cold. By that point, it was Grundig. With Elementary, who does Orgy. Have another beer, Jay. I'm like 4 in and I'm sounding like an idiot already. But this,
because you're drinking fucking pine tar and fucking.
By the way, did you see Hop Devil got retired by a Victory Brewing Company? It's a sad day there.
Trash. What's in the beer? We'll take a beer break here. What's in the beer you're drinking here?
Uh,
Fucking vanilla beans and
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have come full circle. I went from Miller Lite to a beer snob. I'm back to, yo, can I just get a PBR? These are High Lies, which is I think is it Cigar City? Cigar City Brewing in Tampa, Florida. This is their run of the mill IPA. It's 7.5. So it's
ugh,
not like high test. And it doesn't have the hops where you're like, I gotta
you
scrape my
fucking
tongue.
you just go to your local pine tree and scrape off a couple
Just
barks and drink
lick the
that
pine
shit.
tree. Yeah,
Ugh.
a hop. Dude, the worst part about I'm getting old and probably shouldn't share this on the podcast, but when I drink too many of those like warp speed IPAs, my stomach is like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, well, allow me to retort. It's terrible. It's terrible. Back to
Get the pine sap out of me.
get this shit out of here. It's like drinking what is it? What's the gin? It tastes like pine needles.
Fucking Bombay
Tanqueray.
Sapphire,
Tanqueray.
Tangeray. Oh yeah.
Oh God. But anyway, so one of the things to think about with this is Interscope actually had a great idea in that sense. At the end of 99, Interscope sales accounted for 1/3 of the market share, driven by their multi-platinum performances of their heavy music. So those joint venture deals were smart for Jimmy Iovine because he didn't own it whole hog. He didn't buy it. He didn't acquire it. He was just saying, "Look, we'll put it into press and we'll get it out there for you. We'll help, and we just get a cut." Smart move.
Definitely.
Something to think about in '98 as we talk about these levels. You have Interscope, West Corn, Limp Bizkit, Orgy, Roadrunner. At this point, Roadrunner is finding the next big thing. This is Fear Factory. This is Slipknot. They signed in '98. This is Machine Head. This is Karma to Burn. This is Cold Chamber. This is, oh God, who else, Tim? Who am I missing? Who am I missing? We eventually end up with like your 5.0s, your Dry Kill Logics, your all that stuff. But yeah, this is them. They were finding the next big thing. We need to get Mike Gitter on or Monty Connor and talk to them about that.
We tried.
We still have Earache records out there. They're still around. Morbid Angel, Godflesh. They're Digby Pearson at that point is starting to fuck around with the techno stuff. This is Ultraviolence. This is Johnny Violence. This is he was a little bit too far into the weeds. And then lastly, you have Spine Farm Records, who I completely forgot about until I was doing this research. They have Nightwish. They have Children of Bodom. They're doing that folk metal, that symphonic Finnish black metal type stuff.
Oh, I
And
forgot. I forgot that Bodum came out on Spine Farm.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Earache put out in '98. We should find a copy of this. An album titled Hellspawn, which was extreme metal remixed by techno producers, and it drove people crazy and it alienated a shit ton of people.
Why does it sound like shit?
I don't know. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Earache Records Hellspawn compilation
Is it?
track.
Let me know if it's on streaming.
All right, so we have okay, okay. You have a Morbid Angel song remixed by the Berserker. You know how that's going to sound. You have a Napalm Death song, Breed to Breathe, remixed by Delta 9. Delta 9 is he's a straight happy hardcore type guy. Dub War, remixed by Panacea. Ultra Violence, remixed by Hellsow. I gotta find this album. Um, Brutal Truth, remixed by Freak. Polkas, remixed by Shitspitter. Godflesh, remixed by Justin Broderick. Misery Loves Co., remixed by Pitch Shifter, and then another Morbid Angel song remixed by the Berserker. Tim, look up, is that on streaming for you?
Let's see.
I mean, he technically should own the rights. If not, we're gonna have to go to the old YouTubes or the old Soul Seeps.
What's it named again?
Hellspawn.
Let's see. I'm just getting artists and songs.
Hellspawn artist compilation. Is this it? Oh, it's on Spotify.
Maybe I'm typing this in wrong.
One word, Hellspawn. The subtitle is Extreme Metal meets Extreme Techno.
Nah, I'll have to look. I ain't finding anything right now.
Yes, you gotta find it. I'm gonna listen to it tomorrow morning, and the cats are all gonna freak out in the house. It's gonna be wild. Lastly, we'd be remiss if we don't talk about Century Media and Nuclear Blast. At this point, they're doubling down. Century Media has become a hell of a long way, and now they're a big name in our extreme music scene. But at this point, they were doubling down on power metal, melodic death metal. They were basically the last bastion for bands for fans that were trying to get away from new metal. That were like, yeah, it's not really my thing. I want to do something else. Well, this is where they landed. Next, Tim, let's talk about music journalism and the rock is dead narrative. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So in 98, there was some level of almost persistent anxiety with the death of rock music. Critics love to talk about EDM, electronic dance music, and hip hop as evidence that the guitar is done. Just put a fork in it. Uh, Marilyn Manson puts out a single, "Rock is Dead" on Mechanical Animals. So him being satirical and trying to joking about the commodification of rebellion, he was one of the primary beneficiaries of that, which is kind of funny. Korn, Manson top the charts. Metallica releases Garage Inc., which is a dual album of covers. Wildly popular. Rock is Dead. Mainstream critics were all busy trying to find the new Nirvana, and they overlooked some of the stuff like Converge. They overlook Refused. The Shape of Punk to Come comes out in 98. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you like that band or not. That is a awesome album, and God bless them that they were able to implode and walk away. And there's such excitement for their sound that they actually came back and made a go of it and did a couple of decent albums. Their comeback record is great. Their comeback
I
record is
just
great.
can't get into that band for some reason.
Hey, it's not for everybody. Uh, I just think they did some fun stuff, and the critics. The point of this I'm trying to make with this section is the critics just missed it. They just missed it. They were too busy looking for the new thing from the old and what's coming over here, that there was shit right in front of them that they really could have capitalized on and made themselves stand out, that they just basically ignored.
Sounds about
Now we're
right.
gonna now we're gonna do one of my favorite but unfavorite parts of the when we do these yearly deep dives. These are the tragedies of the next big thing. These are the bands that, for whatever reason, never blew up, never really got their day in the sun, and it really is a shame. First band is a band that is actually very, very near and dear to me. Signed to Epic Records. This is Ultra Spank. And this band was widely considered to be criminally underrated. They were industrial metal with a more polished sound than Korn. Pete Murray has amazing vocals. He can actually hit high notes and soar. I go back and listen to this album a uncomfortable amount of times.
Did we do this record?
No, no, because we couldn't find a lot of it. But you know what? That was then. Maybe we should do it again.
Didn't we try and get Pete on as well?
Oh, I've reached out to Life on Planet Nine a bazillion times. Pete and the other guy, the guitarist who play with him. Um, Whatever, we'll keep trying. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. The sad part is that so this album comes out in 98. The market is moving towards the frat boy rap rock, or quote unquote, of Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock. Ultra Spank was kind of cerebral. They were more technical, industrial, and rock radio was not going to go anywhere near it, sadly. They released one more album in 2000, which is Progress, which is a true cult classic. Fans of the band love this album. It wasn't on streaming for ages, and then they just disappears. Next band that missed and never got a chance to be as big as they could have been, Roadrunner Records. This is Spineshank with Strictly Diesel. This is their debut on Roadrunner. They were founded and recruited by Fear Factory, which is sad because they were also badged as Fear Factory clones.
Yeah.
I liked what they were doing. That it was very, very aggressive, but it didn't have the hooks that Static X had. And if we're being honest, Tim, I really do think that with the second album in 2000, Height of Callousness, they found their spot. But at that point, the genre was already starting to go. Tide was going out. This is a quote unquote sophomore slump. They do end up with a Grammy nom for Smothered, but they never reach the same stature as a Fear Factory or Slipknot.
Yeah, and it's sad because that record's great.
Yeah, if you go back, you know what? I'm gonna go back and listen to that tomorrow too, because that's an album I forget and then I really, really enjoy every time I go back to it.
Yeah, New Disease is a great song.
Uh Next, we have fan favorite of both our listeners and you and I, Nothing Face. So this is their major label debut. So Pacifier comes out in 97. Their major label debut comes out in 98, An Audio Guide to Everyday Atrocity. This is way more aggressive and complex than most nu metal and most of the standard radio fare at the time. They were too heavy for the mainstream. They were too nu metal for underground. There was no hip hop sound, no DJ scratching, none of that stuff. They were just an aggressive, loud band, and it just didn't. Their stuff was so dark. I just don't think it worked because everybody at that point was looking for the comical big pants,
Yep.
Nookie, and they didn't fit. They're one of these bands that unfortunately gets labeled as a bands band, and they dissolve in the mid 2000s. Matt Holt ends up passing away. I still think Violence is for me, one of my critically missed nu metal albums um, when I think back to bands that I didn't really appreciate at the time that now as an older guy, I'm like, fuck. Crossbreed is another one. Another one.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Next, Tim, I'm going to talk about another band that never really, well, he did blow up, but he never really got where he wanted to get. Vanilla Ice releases Hard to Swallow.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
this is Ross Robinson. This is Casey Chaos from Amen. This was Sonny Mayo. This is everybody hanging around Ross's orbit. They did this metal, rap metal for Vanilla Ice. And this shit was really heavy. And if you go back, it's actually good. But it's people looking at Vanilla Ice going, yo, you're chasing trends, you're using Ross Robinson. And even though the album didn't sell well, it's actually treated like a punchline. It really is good. The metal version of Ice Ice Baby is called Too Cold on this album, and it's fantastic.
I've heard this record maybe a couple times. I haven't even thought of listening to it for 25 years. I'm going to do that tomorrow.
If someone who's listening wants to come on and do an in defense of Hard to Swallow, let us know through email, through Instagram, to Twitter, through the YouTube comments. We will have you on to defend this album. We will have you on.
And Detox, we're looking at you.
What's the last one that we got John to defend? Supercharger?
I think so.
Yeah, there were some times where he'd legitimately look uncomfortable in that one, which was kind of funny. All right. We only got two.
Let's ping him.
John, come on and defend Hard to Swallow. And then he goes,
do you like Hard to Swallow?
All we get is
them right now.
All we get is no. Next one,
right now while we're talking.
Another band that's near and dear to my heart, Kilgore, comes out in Revolution/Warner Brothers. They were Kilgore Smudge, shorten the name to Kilgore. A Search for Reason. This is very sludgy, very groovy, more Pantera than Limp Bizkit. I think this album didn't really take off because they were kind of stuck. They hit that weird time where we're coming out of 90s groove metal and we're going into nu metal. They don't have the rap, they don't have the DJ scratching. They're very, very blue collar aesthetic, and it just didn't compete. It just couldn't compete, sadly. They played Ozzfest 98. They actually opened the main stage when I went to the Camden show. They toured with Slayer, I believe, opening for Slayer and Fear Factory. And then they disbanded soon after. They did later, though, come around and do an EP, which was really good. They did an
You
EP.
like that?
I love Kilgore. I think their sound is very, very, very unique. I reached out to them a couple times to get them on the show because I really enjoy their stuff. It's not for everybody. Last, we'll do a band which did get some notoriety, but it never really took off in the massive sense. Cold. So this comes out in Flip A&M. This their self-titled debut. Fred Durst produced it. They found success with 13 Ways to Bleed on stage and then Year of the Spider. They got friendlier and radio rockier, and it actually worked. Stupid Girls. They write some hooks. We've talked about hooks. They write some hooks. This album is just depressing. It's just depressing. And when everybody else is partying and everybody else is looking for nookie and you got to have faith and jump the fuck up and you have these guys coming around moaning about relationships not going well. Yeah. Read the room, guys. Read the room. Read the room.
Yeah,
That being
just
said,
be a little heavier.
it's a beautiful album. It's a beautiful album. Now, Tim, real quickly, just a couple of bands, not necessarily debuts, but band forms in '98 from New Jersey, 40 Below Summer. Their
Criminally
original
underrated.
their original name was 6 Degrees of Degradation. They signed to London Sire in 2001, but at that point, nu metal is basically on its way out, and they really in New Jersey they really couldn't compete with the other New Jersey hometown hero nu metal band Il Nino.
Yeah, but they're
98,
criminally underrated.
yes. 98, which we should do a deep dive into that. Their debut, 40 Below Summer.
I'm down.
Don't let me forget about that. 98, there's another band by the name of Hinge. They released their independent debut, Elementu. Hinge, Tim, goes on to be what band?
Is that Dry Kill Logic?
Dry Kill Logic. I think they were too metal for when their album comes out on Roadrunner. It's just 2 years later, I think. They had to change their name due to trademark laws right as they were starting to gain some momentum. They were too metal for the MTV crowd, but too nu metal for the death metal purists, and I think they kind of landed right in the middle. Again, just right band, wrong time, wrong sound, and it just didn't launch. There's some other stuff I found, like Boiler Room from New York City. They formed in '96. They were active in '98. They signed to Tommy Boy Records, which was a rap label, and Tommy Boy had no idea what to do with them. Kind of like Head PE in their first album, where they signed to Jive, and they were like, "Yeah, we should, we're gonna be the one." By the way, when does that come out? I think it's '99. No, when does Head PE come out?
98.
90, 97. Oh, maybe we talked about it last episode. Maybe we didn't. Yeah, it comes out in '97, but they were on Jive. They did not fit. They were the odd man out. Nobody had any idea what to do with them, and it just never did well. Broke comes out next year.
They got the glass shell treatment.
Yeah, they got the glass shell treatment. 20 Dead Flower Children put out something in '98, Candy Coated Fury. This was industrial nu metal, somewhere between Manson and Coal Chamber, but they were just at that point, Orgy owned that niche, and nobody was getting in that space. So they had no chance. If we had to sum it up, Tim, the common themes for failure in '98 for nu metal specifically boils down to, first things first, is the Ross Robinson fatigue. People are burnt with Ross. They're burnt with that sound, and there's so much saturation, it all just starts to sound together. Secondly, it's actual market saturation. So the majors are signing anybody with a 7-string, a DJ, and a tracksuit. So now you have this mid-tier talent coming to the fore, and then most of these bands didn't have a hook. And it's sad to say, like Ultra Spank, great at atmosphere, no radio-friendly chorus.
And that was huge back in the day too.
Now, well, at that point, that's what you needed.
To even, if you wanted to try to hit the radio, you need to have a chorus. You need to have a hook.
Yep.
I mean, nowadays it's just you just put out any trash on the radio, but back in the day, even if you wanted to sell records, you had to have the hook.
Hooks and choruses sell albums. They move units. We've had this conversation with again and again and again. Yeah. Couple more bands, Tim, I'm just going to call out before we move forward. Not nu metal, but in that area. Be Numb puts out Soul of the Martyr, and they're arguably a grindcore band, but they were too heavy for the hardcore kids, too hardcore for the death metal and the grind kids. That they were all over the place. That very crust punk. It was a big fan in the underground, but it never really broke through. You ever a fan?
No.
Another band, were you ever a fan of Buzz Oven?
Nope.
All right, so they released At a Loss in '98. Arguably, North Carolina band. This is arguably their best effort. However, they were starting to blow up like them internally before this album even came out. Right after they it nuked them, and sadly, there was, if you remember at the time, Tim, there was a little bit of a stoner sludge rock push. Uh, the band that benefited most was Clutch. People don't realize Clutch went out and opened for Limp Bizkit on the Ladies' Night in Cambodia tour.
And they're still putting out stuff.
Still putting out good music.
I
Good
I
music.
never could get into Clutch for some reason.
The first couple albums for me um, are just amazing. Put it on in the background and let it groove out. Transnational
What,
Highway Speedway League.
isn't there like an
The first,
Elephants one or something? Elephants
yes,
on
Elephant
something.
Riders.
Okay.
Tim, I would suggest the least. I'm trying to think. What's the least weird Clutch album? You know who we should call? Mike from Orthodox. He's a huge Clutch fan. Um,
Mike's a huge fan of always weird stuff.
Weed Eater. How does that make sense? Uh, Elephant Riders. That's a pretty good album. Soap Makers is a great song. They hit some groove there. I would suggest Elephant Riders. I'm a big fan of the self-titled, which is kind of weird, but yeah, I would check out the Elephant Riders too. You might like it. Blast Tyrant was good.
Let's
Um,
see. I'm gonna find it.
yeah, I would go Blast Tyrant and then either Robot Hive Exodus. Uh, I do dig me some Clutch.
I
And
have
again, they're
Ship
still
of
putting out
Gold on
albums.
right now.
By what
I
album is that?
already ate
Elephant
it.
Riders?
Yeah.
Go to Soap Makers, track 4.
Soap maker.
All
I can't.
right, we tried. So anyway, Buzz Oven self-destructs, creates space for Clutch. Clutch goes on to have a massive, massive career. They're still making albums. And the last band, Tim, we briefly talked about earlier, Coalesce. Converge, Coalesce come out at the same time. For whatever reason, Converge hits, Coalesce doesn't. And I really do think it's because they were always breaking up. They had massive amounts of lineup changes. They never stuck around and were consistent long enough to actually get notoriety. Because I remember reading alternative press and they talked about the state of hardcore in the US and all these bands bubbling below the surface. And it was Coalesce, Converge, I think it was American Nightmare, it was Turmoil, it was all these bands. And Coalesce didn't pop, but Converge did. Who knows? Who knows? I think we have. Let's just do a couple more hits here, Tim. A couple more things to hit on. Let's hit on. We're not going to talk about the role of music journalism, but they did help push some of this stuff. For example, Kerrang, their best album in '98 was Around the Fur. So that validates what the Deftones are doing. Metal Hammer, the best newcomer is Soulfly, so they give them that recognizes what Max is doing at the time. Rolling Stone gives Metallica's Garage Inc. a 4 out of 5. Eh, uh, that's I don't, yeah, it's kind of flogged. They polished a turd on that one. And lastly, the Village Voice gives a C+ to Mechanical Animals, which I include not because it's great, but it shows that there's how divisive Marilyn Manson was at that time. And regardless of what these labels were saying, this is where it starts to establish that Ozzfest second stage is the true nu metal incubator. And this is where bands like System of a Down and Incubus and Ultraspank and all these bands get the snot, get their exposure, get their licks. Taproot, all those bands, they start playing that, and that's where Slipknot, that's where they get noticed. We're going to talk about 2 more things that we're going to get out of here. First, let's talk about legacy acts. So what were the big 4 doing at the time? So at the time in '98, Metallica releases Garage Inc., which sells 3.35 million copies.
God damn, man.
So it was covers, B-sides, and then the Garage Days revisited EP. And I think what was the song? Was it Memory Remains, or there was a song that was on this that was really, really breaks them out, and it gets fans who hated the load reload years. This brings them along quite well. we talked about Slayer and Diabolus and Musica, where they try to do something a little bit new metal. It only gets like 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 for most review sites. It does go gold and hits top 40, but new metal worship. Next, we have Megadeth. They headline Ozzfest. Uh, they got bagged on for their live sound. It just didn't sound great. They're still an arena level draw, but they had yet to put out the Turd Blossom. That is, what is it, Risk?
It's
I think it was
because
Risk at the time.
he was still talking about how he wrote all the Metallica songs on stage and
I
shit.
actually think if you asked him, he would talk about how he wrote Ave Maria that the Christians church has sang since the beginning of time. Um, in industrial remixes, you have Anthrax, who what did they do right about at this time? They did some remixes and stuff, and they were fucking around with it, but they were just trying to navigate the landscape, the label landscape, because everything was shifting, right? They were big, and then persistence of time, and then Belladonna leaves. Shout out to Jimmy Ferrari, who refuses to acknowledge the John Bush years over, even though Stomp 442, Sound of White Noise, not bad albums. Bad albums. What else do we have here, Tim? Iron Maiden 98. They released Virtual XI, Virtual 11. This is Blaze Bailey's last album. The fans wanted Bruce Dickinson. They didn't really give a shit, and they were tired of it. They were tired of it. Also, though, while they're tired of this, we have Stoner Rock is starting to come out of the woodwork here, right? Monster Magnet, Mathcore. So American Nervoso by Botch comes out in 98. So does When Forever Comes Crashing by Converge, this is hardcore. It just making hardcore insane, just cacophony, right? And it paves the way for what we know as mathcore. Paves the way for that explosion in the 2000s. And then you've got stuff like Catatonia, who move into some more atmospheric rock with the Discouraged ones. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff that came out that landed that didn't. Everybody was just trying to find somewhere to fit in.
Yeah,
And
this is like the pinnacle of '90s where, because when we start '94,
yeah,
and you had just the typical bands that nowadays you're like, oh yeah, but as you go like 97, 98, that's when you're finding all these bands that nowadays kids are finding, and they're going, oh shit, this was really good. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
Because a
Um,
lot of young bands are like trying to mimic a lot of the stuff from this era
yes,
as
yes.
this day comes, or as this year comes. That's how I always seen it.
Yes, you're still when you start seeing more bands ripping off the sound of that particular year, you can tell that sound was ascendant.
Yeah.
And I I think at this point in 1998, we have now accepted that new metal is here. It's here to stay, and it's the dominating extreme music genre. It is global. It is infected journalism. It is infected touring. It is infected the labels. It's infected the industry. Everybody's looking for a piece. And I'm most curious, Tim, to when we get to like 2003, 2004, because I'm very, very curious to talk about. I mean, sadly, new metal's decline.
What
Uh,
year should we do up to? Should we do up to when do we start? 2020? Maybe we
when did
should
we
do up to
start?
20. I think we started April 2020. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
we'll
think
do up to 2020.
Jesus, could we? That's a hell of a long journey. Well, let's at the minimum we're going to 2005 at the minimum. Um and we'll see where we go from there. Let's take it home, Tim. So we've established that new metal is the new thing. We've established that the Euros are doing something a little bit different, but there's still some resonance there. Nightfall and Middle Earth. Um and Follow the Leader prove that you now have this weird bifurcation where there is this mainstream success that everybody's into, bigger acceptable sounds, but then there's also still this underground, very sophisticated, kind of high concept avant-garde type stuff, which is there's still a demand for that. And rock is dead in the 90s, late 90s. No, you were wrong. What you call rock, the hair metal shit is dead. Grunge is gone. Um, Now we've got, Fred Durst is the man in town, and we're here to talk about it. And we've got we're at this point we're starting to redefine what it is that we know and define as heavy music, and uh, the big labels getting in absolutely helped because they brought some polish and the consolidation allowed them to market with efficiency, which is previously just pop and hip hop music. And you have artists who are being a little bit daring with some commercial savvy. This is where you get this is where you establish this underground as, this is a thing and it's not going anywhere. I mean, sadly, we didn't talk about it. I mean, Chuck Schuldiner dies in 98. Lynn Straight killed in a car crash in 98, which torpedoes any chance Snot had back then of being successful, although their new vocalist is great, and I think they're going to do some really good stuff. At this point, we have now established that nu metal is here. It's the thing. Everybody's into it. The labels are all in. The fans are in. Gadzooks pops up. Hot Topic is. We should do a history of Hot Topic, actually, now that I think about it, because that would be a real fun talk. Nu metal's here to stay. And it's going to be here for another 5-6 years before things just. It doesn't even burn out. I think it just fades away and it's kind of replaced. But anyway,
Yeah.
not to let's
Before
go
the
on.
44th before the 44th replication of Primer 55 comes out.
That band is the Punch, the industrial stamp, where they just kept stamping bands and stamping bands and stamping
Yeah,
bands. And no offense to any of the guys, rest in peace, Jason and all those guys. But you could tell they were scraping at the bottom of the barrel with that.
absolutely.
It's
That's nothing against Primer. We're
no,
just
no, not even remotely, not remotely. All right, everybody. 1998 was a wild year. This is a big year. To me, this is nu metal's high water mark. It's all downhill from here. Mainly because of the next 2 years I graduate college and I discovered this wonderful thing called Poison the Well. And life gets interesting. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this. What did we miss? Did we miss anything? Please let us know in the comments. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. It really does help. New Breed _ podcast on X/Twitter and Instagram. newbreedpodcast@gmail.com, 267-297-4627 for your complaints. Find us on our Facebook page. New episodes every Wednesday at 12. New reaction vids every Friday at 12. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was a fun one. I hope we did the year justice. Looking forward for the rest of the series. Until next time, cheers.